Chair, I think we can start. It's 5:30 if you'd like to. Are we okay, Selena?
That's probably when I I think I started.
Okay, welcome to this Plan Commission meeting. We're going to open it. It's 5:30 on the December 14th here in the city of Santa Clara. We'll call to order and then we'll start our opening ceremonies. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Harris and opening an invocation by Commissioner Walton.
Please join me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day, for the opportunity to meet as a Planning and Zoning Commission. We're grateful for citizens who are willing to serve and do this important job. We're grateful for the beautiful city in which we live, for our families and community members that live here. We pray for their health and prosperity, and we ask that Thou will bless us with good judgment and wisdom as we discuss and talk about important issues for our city. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I guess before we move on, we have like actual full quorum tonight with our newest member. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Is this on? I can't tell.
Yep.
Yes.
I came with the.
I'll just say this is Connie Hunter, who was appointed by the council last night.
Oh,
So she's here the
very-
next
very
night,
new.
just like Kristen was in July. So go ahead.
That's right. I'm a greenie. Yes, I'm from Santa Clara, and I'm sorry I came with a sore throat tonight. I'm just excited to do this with you guys. I love Santa Clara with all my heart and was raised here, and now I get to raise my own family here, and I care deeply about this town and the choices that are made, and I hope that you'll be patient with me as I learn. This is outside of my bubble that I've been in for 20 years, being a mom at home, but I'm excited to learn and to do this, so thanks for your confidence.
Thank
in
you.
me.
With that, we'll move on to our item number 3, our working agenda. What do I say? There's no item number 3. So this is on to item number 4, general business, a public meeting about the Utah State Annexation Statute, which I will, I guess I should read all that, but which was amended by the Utah legislature in 2021. Santa Clara intends to adopt an annexation policy plan. The annexation policy plan is intended to comply with the provisions of the state statute UCA 10-2-401.54 and incorporate all criteria required and suggested by section 10-2-401. This opportunity will allow for affected entities to examine the proposed annexation policy plan and provide input for it. And I'm going to hand over to Jim for further presentation.
Thanks, Chair Blake. I'm going to go ahead and present. We have legal counsel Matt Entz here as well this evening. This is something that we don't do all the time. An annexation policy plan is a little bit different, and there's a different process that's required to go through this to actually have a policy plan adopted for the city, as we currently don't have one. Again, this is a public meeting, and this is an opportunity for affected entities to examine the proposed annexation policy plan and provide input on it. A list of affected entities has been attached for review, so we did include that in your packet. I believe we had a total of 8 affected entities. We have the city manager this evening with us from Ivan City, so the word has gotten out that we're looking to put an annexation policy plan in place. And so these were the affected entity lists. Matt Entz and I came up with this list. And so a notice of the public meeting, again, it's not a public hearing tonight, it's a public meeting, was sent to these affected entities well in advance of this evening's meeting. I'm going to go back to here. And so state code, we've talked about that a little bit, but I'll just go through it briefly. Section 10.2.401.5 that's a lot, requires the Planning Commission to hold a public meeting to allow affected entities to examine the proposed annexation policy plan and provide input on it. It also requires the city to accept and consider any additional written comments from affected entities until 10 days after the public meeting, so 10 days after tonight's meeting. Additionally, before holding a public hearing required under this subsection, make any modifications to the proposed annexation policy plan by the Planning Commission considers appropriate. So it allows for that consideration. That's something city staff and others would look at as well, based on input provided at or within the 10 days after the public meeting. So city staff recommends that the Planning Commission hold a public meeting, which is what we're doing this evening, and allow for the affected entities who have chosen to attend either in person or virtually to provide input on the annexation policy plan. City staff then will then determine when this item will come back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing as per section 10-401.52A6 of state code. Now it's pretty interesting here, there's a wrinkle. Generally with a public meeting, if we're looking at a subdivision or something of that nature, we don't take a public comment. But the statute here requires public comment because this is an annexation policy plan and the state code is different and was updated as recently as 2021, state statute allowing for this. So it's a three-step process. So the first meeting is tonight, which is a public meeting with the Planning Commission only. Then we go through the criteria allowing for them to provide comment, consider all the comments, bring it back probably sometime next month in January. That then is a public hearing. So that public hearing, they'll be allowed to comment again. You'll see all the input. And then the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council on the annexation policy plan, which we intend to adopt and put in place because we currently don't have one. Then the City Council will hold a second public hearing, and they will have that and invite the affected entities and others again to comment before making the final decision. So you can see it's a little bit different. State code generally, in the case of a legislative decision such as a rezoning, which we've had quite a few this last year, that's one public hearing is required with the Planning Commission. And then the City Council either approves or denies that legislative decision during a public meeting. It's not a second public hearing. That's not required by state code. But state code's a little bit different here when it comes to this annexation policy plan. And I just want to go through a few highlights. I really don't want to read this page by page. We can open it up and you can ask questions. Again, city legal counsel's here. Matt helped me develop this and put it in place or get this draft before you this evening. I just want to go to the first page and give you kind of the guide. So the annexation policy plan is a guide to the orderly and well-planned annexation and development of lands contiguous to the city's boundaries. It may be modified from time to time to meet changing needs and to reflect the best interests of the community. An annexation policy plan consists of the following elements. First, general annexation criteria. Second, a map of the proposed expansion area. Third, procedure for submission of an annexation request. A lot of that goes through the city recorder. That's all through state code. 4, extension of needed municipal services in developed and developing unincorporated areas and payment. So the criteria, I'm going to actually go to our map first because we refer to that. Now, we sent a map last Thursday out to you. Our person that specializes and helps us with GIS and putting maps in place received some more information from the county earlier this week. So this map has changed a little bit over the map that you had in your packet. And where it is it's an expansion of the Graveyard Wash reservoir that's proposed on the land here, which is currently mostly BLM property, but some unincorporated county that you can see here. The difference is if I go back to the portfolio and I'll just go to our map, the only difference is the size of the reservoir. You can see that that's changed a little bit. And we were working from what had been provided to us in the past to the best of our ability to match it, but some changes have been made. And that's the difference. It kind of goes up into here and this finger over into here more, where before the limits were over in here, it's going more north, it's going more east and south. I'm going north this way, but the real direction out there in the field. So I wanted you to see that. So the general criteria, and I just want to briefly talk about that. As part of of its ongoing effort to plan and prepare for quality growth, Santa Clara City has identified certain territory outside of and contiguous to its present boundaries. See Appendix A, that is this map. This is our annexation map, which could at some future time reasonably be considered for annexation into the city. The areas proposed for possible future annexation include areas that in some instances are bordered by other municipalities. 2, areas to be annexed must be contiguous to Santa Clara City. 3, the property must be within the area projected for expansion under the Santa Clara City Annexation Declaration area. Again, that's Appendix A. 4, the property cannot be included within the boundaries of another incorporated municipality except as provided by law. And that's something we'll probably likely discuss. As you can see, we have a couple properties here that are currently in Ivans. They are the green properties along Highway 91 on either side of Pioneer Parkway, and then another remnant over here. And we can talk about that more later on. 5, if practical and feasible, the boundaries of an area proposed for annexation shall be drawn. It says along the boundaries of existing districts for sewer, water, power, along the boundaries of school districts, and along boundaries of other taxing entities. B, to eliminate islands and peninsulas of territory that are not receiving municipal services. C, to facilitate the consolidation of overlapping functions of local government. D, to promote the efficient delivery of services. And E, to encourage the equitable distribution of community resources and obligations. 6, I think this is very important. Santa Clara City has a rural agricultural history with a mix of land uses provided in the city. The city is growing in population and the demand for both residential and commercial uses of land is high. The city encourages commercial uses that will benefit its growing population. Areas to be annexed should be compatible with the needs of Santa Clara City. 7, Santa Clara City is concerned about the interests of all affected entities and has considered written comments from affected entities in finalizing this plan. So that's, once we get to it, that's where we're at right now. The city is in support of property within the expansion area being developed so utility and transportation systems can be incorporated into the comprehensive plan for the area. Wherever practical, new city boundaries should conform to the boundaries of existing districts for sewer, water, power, along the boundaries of school districts and along the boundaries of other taxing entities. 8, Santa Clara City shall not favor the annexation of areas for which it does not have the capability or the intention of providing municipal services, except for utility services that are not provided by the city, but are provided by other utility entities in the area to be annexed. 9, it's not Santa Clara City's intent to annex property for the sole purpose of acquiring revenues. 10, this annexation policy plan does not exclude from the expansion area any area containing urban development within 1/2 mile of the city's boundaries. Now, the next section is procedures for submission of an annexation request. That's just straight by state code and the requirements of a city recorder to accept a petition and go through the process. I don't want to go through that right now. If you have questions, we can try to answer those. I want to go to item C, which I think is very important. It's the extension of needed municipal services in developing unincorporated areas and payment. And so this, we've got 8 key points here. Item 1, in areas where municipal services are not presently extended, services will be extended on an as-needed basis at the developer's expense. All extensions of municipal services shall comply with all city ordinances and policy criteria. 2, an annexation agreement may be prepared between the city and future developers outlining specific requirements relating to culinary water, secondary water, wastewater, stormwater drainage, transportation, electricity, and other specific improvements prior to the annexation approval. 3, an approved annexation petition will allow developers of the annexed property to connect to city facilities, provided that all infrastructure proposed to be connected meets city standards and specifications and complies with all applicable development and land use ordinances. 4, the way the infrastructure additions are developed will have a bearing on how they are financed. The increased valuation of property and the subsequent increase in property and sales tax revenues will help increase contributions to the city's general fund. This increase will help defray the added cost of providing services to the annex area. 5, in general, the costs and expenses of capital improvements such as utilities, streets, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, storm drainage systems, and other improvements deemed necessary in the annex area shall be borne by the developer as development within the area occurs. 6, when the annexation is approved, the newly annexed area shall receive the following services, and this is key: fire protection, police protection, building and safety, planning and zoning, utilities provided by the city at the time of annexation, maintenance of dedicated city public streets, and other services provided by the city at the time of annexation. 7, it is not anticipated that an annexation will cause any adverse consequences to residents currently living within the city or living within the annex area, except that there may be a slight reduction in general services available to current residents because of expansions of service into the newly annexed territory. Last item, 8, it is anticipated that the residents in the newly annexed territory will experience an increase in their property taxes due to the difference in certified tax rates between the city and Washington County. It is further anticipated that as the city receives property tax revenue from the newly annexed territory, the level of service for the entire community will increase. So that is the text, and we can discuss that. I just wanted to briefly go through the map before giving the affected entities an opportunity to speak. And that's up to you, Logan, when you, Chair Blake, when you'd like to do that. But you can see the legend. We have the Santa Clara incorporated areas. We have Ivans. We have Future Gap, Canyon Parkway, Bureau of Land Management. We have Washington County properties and Future Graveyard Wash. This is the reservoir that's been talked about coming to the area. And then we have the potential annexation areas, Bureau of Land Management in yellow, Ivans, we have those 3 parcels that are in green, and then we have the unincorporated county, which is hatched in white. And I don't think we got this map changed like we discussed yesterday, Matt, the roadway, the mayor, that's Hamlin, right? That's not Gap Canyon, it's Hamlin.
Yeah, that label is incorrect.
Hamlin,
It's actually Hamlin Parkway.
Yeah, so we can have that for the next meeting since there's many meetings here to go through the process. So Matt, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. I think it's useful for the commission to understand that a little bit about the why, why we're bringing this to you now. This was really prompted by a discussion with the staff and with the mayor about the potential impacts of the new reservoir. And as we discussed that, it also led to discussion of the impacts of the future extension of Hamlin Drive, which again, Gap Canyon Parkway is incorrect. That should be labeled Hamlin Parkway. And so the mayor and the city manager tasked me with looking at, if we were to look at annexation of some property around the future reservoir, what would we need to do? And the first thing we realized is that the city did not have an annexation policy plan in place. And it's a prerequisite under the statute that we have to have a policy plan before any annexations can be considered. And so we're essentially just taking that first step. I also think it's important for you to know that this map that's in front of you, there's nothing sacred about it. It was prepared purely by staff. No consultations with property owners, with neighboring cities. So this is really a draft, a first draft. I think you can consider it. So the purpose of this meeting, like Jim said, is to get input from the Planning Commission, to get input from the affected entities. And so I just think that's important for you to understand, that you shouldn't feel like what's in front of you is, there's any particular magic to it. It's just a starting point.
So the map's not tied to we're looking at approving the text, not this map.
It'll be both.
Both.
It would be both?
Yep, both.
And this is just the first meeting. We have to have an annexation policy plan, and we have to have the map. That's required by state code, because it's a map of the proposed expansion area that's required to be tied to the annexation policy plan. So this is the map, but this map may change, like legal counsel's indicated. Mm-hmm. But this is our first attempt at a map, working with Matt, other city staff, the mayor and others that have directed us to move forward with getting a policy plan put in place.
Who will be in charge when this reservoir goes? Is that, it'll be owned by the Washington County Conservancy, or the Water District,
St.
right?
It'll actually be owned by St. George City, is my
So will
understanding.
they be in charge of the EMS and the police and who's in charge of that?
This is still in Santa Clara City's and Ivins City's essentially coverage area for emergency services, so it'll be our
So
city's
even though it's
shared
not part
responsibility.
of our annex or our city boundaries.
That's
it's just
correct.
part of our agreement.
Well, it would be. We're
Well, I mean-
putting it in our city boundary.
Well,
Here with the map.
if it's annexed,
If
right.
it's annexed.
Yeah, I
'Cause
mean, this,
it
again, this
currently
is just a policy plan. This does
Right.
not accomplish an actual
Correct.
annexation. Yeah.
Correct, but this is the direction we've been given through many meetings and discussions to get this in place, and then it brings other lands in place into the city too for potential development opportunities as well.
As I was reading through this, one thing that kind of surprised me is that, that there's never a public hearing or a comment once the application or the annexation petition is complete. It never comes back to the planning commission where we're the land use authority. It surprises me that there wouldn't be a public comment or public hearing. Is that an oversight or is that just something that doesn't need to be done?
It's straight out of state code.
Yeah, the actual annexation process, there is not a planning commission component to that.
So landowners
just
could
city
file
council.
it, it could go through, and no hearing, it could just be one day it's St. George. and the
Council
next day it's
decides
Santa Clara.
whether or not to accept the petition
Yeah.
and move forward with it. Now, of course, any land use decision on developing the property in any way, shape, or form, once it's annexed in, would come to the planning commission. But
And
the
with-
annexation petition itself does not, and I went through this many years ago with Saratoga Springs. I was their planning director for about 6 years. Time of my life, that was a real hot pan, frying pan. The LDS Church decided that their ag land should be annexed into the city, 2,955 acres, and that was done very quickly, so things could move forward. You know, the year before, they told us it was going to stay as farmland reserve, FLR, then SLR, Suburban Land Reserve. That's their, for-profit entity came in and said, no, we're changing. We're going to develop these 3,000 acres. We want it annexed in, water agreement, everything else. So all of that went to the council once the annexation petition was accepted. Sure, other communities in the county came in, but in the end, it was found that it's best that that land remain in Saratoga and be developed in Saratoga. It's being developed today. You know, the new temple's right in the middle of it, and we know there's a lot of new home starts there. So similar but different, and that happened in 07, 08 when all that was annexed in and brought into their city.
So as part of the annexation plan, there doesn't have to be any intent listed on the property being discussed. It's just, these are the boundaries, this is it, we're looking at annexing it, but there doesn't have to be a reason or a plan for the property being annexed in. You didn't
Generally,
mention
we
that.
would be petitioned to annex in. We're just creating the policy and the map.
Yeah, this is a way of basically the city saying, this is what we might be interested in taking.
Okay.
And that's probably the right way to look at it. In terms of what happens to a property if it was ultimately annexed into the city, we have ordinances in place that provide that any property that comes into the city comes in as an open space zone. And so, some of this property would probably remain open space if it was annexed, property around the future reservoir. But if any property that was annexed that someone wanted to develop, they would then have to go through the regular process of getting a zone change and all of that. So,
The
and
holding
that's-
zone would be the open space.
yeah,
once
the
it
open
comes
space
in.
zone is
Yeah.
the automatic default. So if somebody wanted something different post annexation, they'd have to go through the whole process of,
Rezoning and
yep.
project plan and entitlements.
It does talk about, the other cities happen to be, like it's in this case at Ivans or whatever, they have to be willing to remove that from their city first, right? That has to come first before.
Yeah, as part of the annexation process, if we were to, if someone, a property owner, for example, was to seek to annex property into Santa Clara from Ivans, it would be a process that would involve both Ivans City and Santa Clara City.
And that would be based on a property owner petitioning us and saying we'd like to develop in Santa Clara City and de-annex out of Ivans City, come into Santa Clara City.
Yeah.
And then at certain times, if it can't be decided upon or agreed upon, it would have to go to the Boundary Commission, and the Boundary Commission would make that ultimate decision on where the property would stay or where it would develop. And so there are a couple small pieces here. I'm sure Dale would like to speak to that, the city manager from Ivans City, but we felt it should be included in this map at this point in time.
At a minimum, just for discussion purposes.
Just for discussion. So.
With that, would they like to speak?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I consider this to be friendly territory. My ancestors were from Santa Clara. My mom was born and raised here, and I've spent a lot of time growing up in this city, and I consider both it and Ivans City as I came home to this area and was lucky enough to do that at the end of a career in Nevada for a long time. Never thought I'd make it home, so appreciate Matt for all he does as well. Known him for a long time and respect him. As you might suspect, Ivans City does object particularly to parcels in the green area at the intersection of Pioneer Parkway and Old Highway 91. That is actually under one parcel number, but it is split by Pioneer Parkway. I don't know if technically that is contiguous to Santa Clara. The old Highway 91 is owned by the state. I know when they were kind enough to give us management responsibility for the highway so that we could pave it at our expense and seek funding for that process instead of them doing it. The state wanted to insist on retaining ownership and would not allow the highway to be annexed into a city. Rather, we were given some authority to govern how it developed and what it would look like. And so Santa Clara has taken care of that opportunity as well and has designed a beautiful street where it was Old Highway 91 going through Santa Clara. But not included within the striped areas of the darker green on the Pioneer side of Highway 91. There is a storage facility and the Ivans City entrance sign at the tip of that at Highway 91.
Is that right here, Dale? Where the
Yes.
sort of
And
right
there's
next
a
to
trail
Rachel.
in between the two cities. And so at some point you're jumping over Ivans City property to get to that other parcel that you now want to annex into the city. That creates a peninsula, which I think is, there's language that says you should attempt to avoid peninsulas. Or creating peninsulas. And so I think there's some doubt as to whether it's contiguous to Santa Clara. On the other side of Pioneer, that triangle backs up against a residential development. Happens to be where I live in the Heritage Estates development. And so
This triangle?
Not the little one.
This one?
That one right
Oh,
there.
right here, okay.
So, as to those two parcels, on either side of Pioneer, I think Ivan City would have its strongest objections. I don't think, or I think chances it would be minimal that you would get Ivan City agreeing to any annexation of those two
But
parcels.
Those are zoned commercial currently, aren't they, or general plan?
Yes, and so the city is looking to that as future revenue sources to help sustain the city. We don't have a lot of commercial within Ivan City. And then the northwest white portion on the other side of 91, on the south side of 91, I think that is in our expansion area. And I believe the code talks about you should avoid mapping and containing in your plan an area that's in our plan.
That's the area that's
This
at
piece?
the northern tip of the reservoir there on that map?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So Dale, I've not been able to find a copy of your annexation policy plan or map. Is that on your city website or is it somewhere
It's an
else?
older one. We haven't updated ours in a long time either.
Okay, okay.
But there, we do have an annexation plan, and I was told by the city engineer that parcel was part of the expansion area. Also to be avoided is the overlap of services. We provide services to those two parcels that I was talking about on Pioneer and Highway 91. Services also run along down 91. They are in the roadway of Pioneer Parkway. We have a water line that comes down 91 and turns and runs along Pioneer Parkway. So to both of those parcels and to actually the parcel, that northwest parcel to the south side, we have utilities readily available to anyone. We'd have to, of course, annex in on the south side of 91, same as you. But on the Pioneer Parkway and Old Highway 91, we already provide services to those properties, and you can see the electrical service on what became a lit sign for our entrance sign. And I believe that's the gist of our comments. I will indicate an intent to file written comments. I would note for the record an address change. Our new city hall is located at 85 North Main, and it's listed 55 North Main, which was the old address. It's the location of SCI, the police services. You would think they would get things to us, but that doesn't always happen. So,
Yeah, we'll update that right now. I didn't realize that. I've been to your city hall lots of times, but I don't know the addresses.
yeah,
So
that we can get timely
that's where
notices.
police is now. Okay,
But,
okay.
but we do intend to file a written response as well. The mayor is out of town, and so he was unable to attend this meeting, and so asked me to cover it. And when I told him that there was still 10 days to file a written comment, he indicated that may be in the form of a resolution. They simplify things, just having a formal resolution of that is signed by the mayor and the council, so you have the legislative body all on one document signing the comment. So, any questions of me?
I would refer to our legal counsel, Matt Entz, and I'm wondering, your mayor's out of town for your city Christmas party?
No, our Christmas party actually,
Yeah,
but is he gone?
he's not here for the Christmas
No,
party?
he's in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
I think he has some family down there, so even though the date was notified well in advance, something came up more important.
What I would say, Dale, as far as a written response, I would think that if Ivans wanted to send over something in writing just under the mayor's signature, we would certainly accept it. Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't need to be a resolution, but if your council wants to do that,
And that's something about, the legislative body signing it, which would be the mayor and the council. So I don't know if it would take the form of a resolution or a letter that the council also signs.
okay, yeah, whatever you think is appropriate, but main point being, we'll accept whatever you send over, and we'll definitely consider it, so.
Yeah.
Would you include a copy of your map? So we've shared our map that we're looking at. Would you include your map so we can
Yes,
compare?
Ask our city engineer to
Okay, that'd be great.
and include it with the written response.
Okay.
And then one other question, Dale, and obviously I'm not expecting any kind of a commitment or a binding response, but I am curious. If Santa Clara City did want to keep that northwesterly parcel, the one in white, in this plan, assuming we take the other parcels that are currently in Ivans out of our plan, do you think there would be any appetite for a discussion of potentially removing that from Ivans' plan so we don't have a conflict there?
There's potential for discussion.
Okay,
Part of it depends on how steep that is as to what can be developed. Santa Clara has chosen to put a lot of short-term housing and along 400 East on the Ivans side, and so I think there's some concern as to what might go on Highway 91. If there's room to build something like that, then there may be a decision made by Ivans to keep it in the annexation plan. I understand.
Well, it's common to see them overlap different cities. I've dealt with that before.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I have too. And
Yeah.
it's read in the code that
Yeah,
that was one of the things you should try to avoid.
Yeah.
But I certainly understand wanting to get some control around the reservoir.
I can tell you that appetite has really decreased recently with short-term rentals. We feel like we've had our fair share in the community. It's time to do some other things, but nothing's ever guaranteed.
Well, both cities are under the obligation to provide moderate income housing.
Yes.
To the apartments, and so there's some concern that
Yeah,
that might be what would be placed there. So I think we'd have to look at that property a little more closely.
I think that would be difficult for Ivans to develop that since it's down the hole like that with, sewer especially right there, but whereas the Santa Clara sewers, it's far away. So I mean, both of those are not very easily developed. None of those white pieces, but
Yeah, if it's very steep, I don't know that Ivans really has an appetite for it. But, and that's why I say, I think now, yes, Ivans may be open to some discussions with you.
okay.
On that. The little green piece, same thing. I don't know that there's a major concern there either. So south of the highway, I wasn't aware of major concerns until today. The city engineer just mentioned that to me, that it was in our expansion area as well. The two parcels that I'm really here to talk about are Pioneer, off of Pioneer, Highway 91 there.
Well, and I think that concern is certainly valid. We all understand the value of commercial property, so that's understandable.
If there's no other questions, then I thank you for the opportunity, and if I may be excused to go to our Christmas.
and we'll make sure when we queue this up for another meeting, when we get to that point, we'll send it to 85 instead of 55. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dale.
Matt, did you have anything else that you may want to add at this point before they discuss?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? He brought up the issue of having that kind of a peninsula, and I can see why they would want to keep it. How would you get around that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There would be, if we assume for a second that the green commercial property that's currently in Ivans was annexed into Santa Clara, you would have that long finger coming down. Honestly, I would have to look at the current version of the annexation code. I know there's been some recent changes to
There's
it
been
that
a
have
bit when it
softened that a
comes to
little
that,
bit.
yeah.
It used to be that if you were going to create an island or a peninsula, you could not do it. I mean, it was quite strong, and I know that some of the language has been softened, and so I don't know that that's going to be an issue. Just to be totally frank, with Ivan saying, we don't want this to leave our city, I just don't see that would be pushed by anybody here.
Well, and us talking about, if you look at those parcels that he was here to discuss, it really kind of is a gateway into our community as well. And that's been our concern. And what we see in St. George has done this all over the place. They put retail and commercial on boundaries, and then our citizens ends up going there and spending money and creating tax base for them rather than keeping it in the city. So that's our concern. The other thing is they did a survey of city residents this last year, and a lot of them were against retail and commercial in the community. They want to just remain a bedroom community with very limited commercial. So, that's another thing, but obviously they want commercial here right next to our boundary. And so that's always a concern for us.
That's been something I've heard from them for a while, that they're holding out for this one particular spot for them.
For this spot right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well, and we had a spot, we thought we had, a Maverick at one point, and they could still come back at some point in time, but, one could go here on this bigger piece, on the, on the bigger piece there. So,
Yeah, and this discussion, I think there is some sensitivity. Dale brought up the 400 East thing, and, the development that we've allowed on the east side of 400 East, and I know there are some strong feelings in Ivans about that, and so.
he was referring to Desert's Edge, the Robert Smith project, because it's half
Right.
short-term rental and half apartments.
Right, well,
Yeah, that
it's
one.
not just that,
Which
it's
is
the
north of this
townhomes, and
piece,
it's other things.
Oh,
but-
yeah, oh, yeah.
So, again, they're our neighboring city. We want to, we need to keep up good relations. We cooperate on many things. Again, I'll be very surprised if we push to keep, property in this plan that they don't ever want to see, come to Santa Clara. So, but that's just my opinion.
But maybe the compromise is this triangle on the other side.
Right.
As well as that other piece that may be in their map that no one's been able to produce. So
Right.
you heard him say it's been a while.
Right.
And so it's interesting that the city engineer is keeper of the annexation map, which we need to see it and be able to compare it. It's not been released to us at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old it is, so, yeah.
And again, the main motivation for doing this in the first place was, the initial question was, should we look at annexing property around the reservoir? It wasn't.
What is
It wasn't really
the
anything
benefit
beyond
to
that.
the city to annex that in?
That's my question.
So I think the biggest thing, and Jim, you might have some thoughts on this too, but I think,
'Cause I was told by St. George that reservoir is like not recreational. It's like not gonna be clean enough to go like,
it's,
Well,
my
they've
understanding
increased the
is,
size, it is larger.
yeah, my understanding is it will be a seasonal reservoir, so it'll be drawn down during the summer months to, mainly for irrigation water. But.
I think the mayor is looking to have some recreation opportunity there,
Recreation,
like others,
that's-
so you could kayak or paddleboard or,
Yeah.
Similar
Or
like
swim if you
Ivans
want to.
Reservoir and Fire Lake.
yeah,
that
like
type of
Fire
idea.
Lake, the reservoir there, not the bass fishery, but the
Yeah.
other reservoir, but this is quite a bit larger than that. I mean, it could hold fish. I've seen this in Spanish Fork, You know, they have one, Bluffdale City has one, and it allows for recreation opportunity for residents as well and others.
Oh, that's news to me, 'cause
Yeah.
I didn't,
Yeah.
what I've been told by the water department is that they weren't planning on doing that sort of thing here.
They may be saying that, but I can tell you the mayor is thinking different than that in our conversations, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think if there are opportunities, people will want to take advantage of it. And the fact, and as part of the discussion, one of the things the mayor pointed out is, you know, his thinking is, we want to potentially control access to the reservoir and how it's used, but also the access from Gap Canyon Parkway. And, excuse me, I'm saying Gap Canyon because it's on the map. It's actually Hamlin Parkway.
Hamlin Parkway access.
So
yeah.
Hamlin Parkway.
You don't think it'll change names once it crosses the highway?
No, and if it did, it wouldn't change to Gap Canyon because Gap Canyon actually intersects it.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's just an error that it's labeled as Gap Canyon.
There's a lot of things going on, we didn't get it fixed.
Yeah,
We'll get it changed.
so we anticipate it'll still be called Hamlin Parkway on
it's
this
just, I
section.
just, because of the change in direction, makes them usually change the names of them, where you're going
It's a good
kind of
point.
easterly, westerly, then all of a sudden you're going westerly, easterly, they usually change it. I didn't know how it tied, I knew it would tie in down there by Gap Canyon, I just didn't know exactly if it.
Yeah, and obviously
continuation.
this map doesn't go that far down, but my understanding is that where Gap Canyon comes up, it will be a T intersection
intersection.
essentially.
I
Yeah.
think the key is we want to control our future and our destiny rather than letting others annex this, before us. It gives opportunities for the reservoir, but there could be some future housing. Now, development potential is limited on BLM property, but there could be some areas that do allow for some future housing, and we keep hearing moderate income housing, affordable housing over and over again. Well, the cities and other cities are looking statewide at perhaps obtaining some of the BLM property. We know outside of Vegas area, in the state of Nevada, they're selling properties to communities that are partnering, because if the land cost is low, next to nothing, then you can afford to bring those utilities in and do some starter housing that we've been told through our sources and others that are in the loop, that the governor is going to be pushing starter housing in the statewide. Starter housing, new starter housing. Is that a 1,200 square foot house? Is that 1,400 single family detached? Smaller lots, and maybe some of these BLM opportunities out here would allow for some of that opportunity. That's been the thought process.
This is tourist habitat and stuff, but they're
It
having a
is.
hard enough time putting the reservoir in there, let
Yeah.
alone housing.
You're right, it is, but where else could we put it? And I know that sounds pie in the sky, but that's the kind of stuff they're debating and will be during this session, and then we get these mandates, so what do we do? And communities like Ivans, I don't know what they're doing, to be in compliance with the requirements for affordable housing, because they don't have near some of the things that we've approved and put in place, so.
So we're putting our annexation policy plan on paper right now, and we're going through the process. Let's say Ivans doesn't have one, and they're debating what they're saying is their area that is on theirs, but they don't really have that.
That's what I'm wondering.
Is that the thing? Is it first come, first served? Just claim what you want, and then, and you
Well,
want to be a good neighbor.
The
but
Boundary
is it-
Commission
that's-
could get involved if they
Yeah,
have
do
to.
we put
if
it on
go
paper
down-
and then
yeah.
just see where the dust settles, or?
Who is the Boundary Commission?
The Boundary Commission is a commission that's set up at the county level. So it addresses essentially conflicts between municipalities over their boundaries.
I had one other question. Someone, I think, said that the reservoir is in St. George City's jurisdiction.
No, they'll be the ones maintaining it,
Government.
they're the ones building it.
Yeah,
It
they're,
would be in our jurisdiction here if annexed in, but St. George City would maintain it. Is that the case, Matt?
yeah.
Okay.
Similar
So
to
would
if
we
the-
be able to build things around it and make it recreational uses even though they're maintaining it?
Yeah, it would be, it's really similar to like if they had a sewer line running through
Oh,
our city,
okay. More like an easement type thing.
Yeah, kind of. And so that's the idea is, you know, they're obviously building it for the benefit of the water storage. But there may be other benefits. In this case, probably some limited recreational benefits. You know, we may see people wanting to access it. We want to have control over how those things happen. We want that. We see that as a potential benefit to the city, but we also want it to happen in an orderly way. And so that's really what's prompting this more than anything
At
else.
the end of the day, it could just be for recreation, for kayaking and paddle boarding and, you know, and I've seen that up north. Quite a few cities have that now. And then they have urban fisheries that are separate, so I don't know that this would include that. And you see those all over St. George, these little urban ponds for the kids. Those of us that like to fish a lot don't want to go there and fish with all the little kids, but, you know, it's a good place for them to learn and it's a good opportunity. So I don't know if that will happen here or not. So.
Yeah, and as has already been pointed out, any of that property that is BLM owned is really, we really have no control over whether that ever is available for development. More likely than not, it won't be. But a couple of these parcels, the ones that are in white at the south end, I think one of them is owned by the
That's what I was gonna ask.
Rosenbrook family.
At what point do the
and-
private property owners get noticed? Because they weren't on your list.
Was
Yeah.
there comment from anyone else?
They don't get notice at this point.
Not for a policy plan, but if
Yeah.
an annexation comes in and we go through the process. then,
Yeah, the only entities that we were required to give notice to was those, they call them affected entities.
Governmental.
Governmental entities, basically. So, yeah, so that's why I say there's been no consultation with property owners. And again, this is a policy. It has no impact on, it doesn't change the boundaries of the city. It basically is almost like, one way I look at it, frankly, it's almost like the similar function as the general plan for zoning. This is almost like kind of the general plan for future annexations, right? We're just basically signaling, hey, these are properties that we might be interested in having them come into the city. And like I mentioned, the two properties in white there on the south, those are privately owned. There could be some development opportunities with those. One is owned, I think, by the Rosenbrook family, and one is owned by the Santa Clara Canal Company, I think. You know, so, but on most of this, frankly, the BLM stuff.
When technically we're doing this because we have to have it. You know, it's not
We
the
do.
Wild West
There's-
anymore where you
yeah.
can just annex in and go through the process and the city says, okay, you have to identify the property on the map. And then if it's not there, they want to annex it in, we'd have to amend the map
Right.
to include it.
It's
but
not
we have to have a
eligible for
starting point.
annexation unless it's in
Yeah.
a plan.
Right,
So-
we can't bring it in, so.
I don't agree with the notion that state routes create a barrier for contiguousness, or however you say that. Because if that was the case, that whole south half of Ivans wouldn't be able to be annexed into their city.
Yeah.
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
but, yeah, it does have to be, I mean, this would be contiguous to like us and, I mean, they already have a peninsula there just with the whole triangle kind of. Anyways,
Well,
but-
and the entryway here is storage units, right?
Well, they also
I
have
mean-
that giant storm drain
Yeah.
running behind the storage
Yeah.
units that
Yeah.
they need to maintain.
Where the trail, where the trail
The
runs.
trail's nice.
Yeah.
And Matt brings up a good point. I know where in the Nevada, Vegas area where BLM is selling property, basically you're hoping that a quarter of it could be developable. That's why the property's going for so cheap, because a lot of it's not, and we can see that. You can get a look for the lay of the land, you can see pockets, small pockets that may allow for some units, but a lot of it wouldn't be developable. So we don't know yet. It's just something that's being explored. And I know they're going to talk about it and they're going to tell us things because they're really pushing for starter housing rather than apartments and townhomes that we've been trying to do, that they've told us to do for moderate income housing. Now they're saying single family, small lot, pad homes, starter housing again. It's really different. You know, I bought my first house for $139,900 in Sandy, right? And I thought that was a lot. Things have changed. Things have changed. So. But that was considered starter housing at the time. We haven't heard that term for a while, so. Nothing like our parents that bought houses for 27,000 or this or that, but
And still remind us of it.
yeah, still remind us. And the guy wanted 147, and he made me work so hard to get him to agree to that price, because that's all I could get. That's all I could do. But, you know, we all have a story. Any other comments?
Looks good.
at this
I
point?
like it.
Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
If this does pass, on the north end, it looks like Hamlin Parkway connects with Highway 91. On the south end, where does that road go to?
So this is the road that we generally refer to as the western corridor.
Okay.
So essentially, this road eventually goes down and connects to
Sun River.
yeah, just through Sun River. So basically, you could get on this
Sun River in the
road
long term,
and take it all the way to the
but
airport,
Sunbrook in the
essentially.
short term.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah.
didn't know it went that far, Matt. That's helpful.
No, it does. I
Yeah.
mean, it's part
Yeah.
of the, it's
Yeah.
part of the loop that's planned for the
Mhm.
entire area, which the southern corridor is a part of. You know, it may take another 15 or 20 years before it happens, but that's the plan.
So this is the actual, it's not concept-like.
It could
So
change, but
proposal
my
might-
understanding is that Mayor Rosenberg actually indicated that that is the current plan.
Is
for
it
that
still
road.
considered a vision? You know, I know they get into the RTP and they have the 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 plus years out, and then a vision.
It's pretty far out there.
I'm sure they're looking for funding though, because it's needed in multiple communities. So, to me, it's similar to the Mountain View corridor up north, where, you know, they're segmenting and putting things together. And if this is Southern Parkway going to the airport, that's quite a, that will be very useful. That's quite a long distance of road.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know that anything's been done on like environmental review or anything like that. So I think it's a long way off.
Yeah,
But at one point, the southern corridor was too, so, and it's there, so.
Yeah.
I don't have any real comments about the language in this. I think it looks kind of in order to me, as far as that goes.
I think it'll be interesting to see the comments we receive, and then Matt and I will sit down and go through them and have other discussions before bringing it back for your consideration. We'll
Yeah.
get some direction. And then we'll need to give them updates on that direction.
Yeah,
So
and
they
it'll be
understand.
back here again, so.
It will be, and it's likely to be in January, so, second meeting of the month probably, so. Unless something comes up, that's
Right.
kind of the timeline we're looking at, and then it would go to council in February, but we'll see. That's all we have on this tonight. I know it's kind of out there, it's different, but it's something that we need, and not every community has one. I've worked with 6 other communities, well, reached out and found their ordinances and their policies, and had some help from some other attorneys as well, and Matt coming up with this, and heard some of the stories between communities. Let's just say Washington City put one in place about a decade ago because they felt like it was force annexing property all around them. And so they felt they needed to have one of these in place, and I think it's time for us to have one in place as well. So.
That's good. Yeah, we had the most recent annexation I could think of was over by Curtis's house, when the Fries built that. They had to do a little swapping because of utilities with St. George or whatever. So they do happen from time to time and that sort of thing, so.
And you brought up a good point about the sewer. I mean, I think we're able to better provide.
They'd have to put another lift
Utilities
station
there.
in. But ours is,
Yeah.
I was looking at, ours is
Yeah.
kind of far away, but it's downhill at least.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, guess there's not really a motion for this item.
No,
Right?
no.
Just a discussion and that sort of thing. Any other discussion items under item 5?
I don't have any. I just want to recognize Ryan Anderson, or we'll let him do that himself. This is his last planning commission meeting tonight, and we can do that now or do that at the end. So whatever you'd like to do, Chair.
Let's do it now. Oh, wait.
We'll just thank you, Ryan, for serving. Is there anything you'd like to say to your planning
Thanks for
commission
letting me
members?
be involved for a year or so. It's been actually a lot of fun. I'll miss it.
Has it been about 2 years?
Yeah.
About
2
two
years,
plus
yeah.
years? Okay. Thank you for being here and being part of our planning commission. Appreciate
Yeah,
your
thank
help.
you.
We've had a little bit of change this last year, a little bit of turnover, so.
With that, let's move on to item number 6, approval of the minutes from November 9th.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from November 9th, 2023.
I'll second it.
Got a motion from Commissioner Walton and a second from Commissioner Whitehead. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes? Aye. That passes. And with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Can I say one
Oh,
thing?
sorry.
Just briefly, thank you for your service this year. It's the end of the year. We'll see you again first of next year. Excuse me, our next meeting is January 11th, 2023. We'll also have a new, yes, 24, I'm sorry. 2024, we'll have a new planning commissioner join us that evening. That was also appointed by the planning city council last night. Cade Roberts will be joining us, taking the place of Ryan Anderson. And as you know, Connie Hunter was appointed to take the place of Mark Hendrickson. And so we'll have a full planning commission. I just want to thank you for your efforts, your work, your diligence, and being part of the community. I think we had a good year. We're looking forward to 2024, and we'll see you on January 11th. That's all I have to add at this point. No fabulous prizes or gifts. Sorry about that, but thank you for being here.
Will we be continuing with the chair and vice chair for next year?
We will have to elect a new chair and vice chair the first meeting of the year, so that'll be part of that agenda. But since you guys are relatively new, if other planning commission members want to continue that, we'll see where that goes. That'll be up to the 7 of you to decide who should be your chair and vice chair for 2024. Getting old. It's not 23. Man, I remember 2000. Remember all that? And here we are in 2024. So.
Hopefully it's not bad. Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting until the 11th, you said, of January?
January 11th.
January 11th.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitehead. Second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun.
I did hear that their kids want to do a dance for Valentine's, but they need to submit an application. Yes. I was gone at a